All right. Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. This is our first game live stream, and I am pretty excited. So, this is going to be kind of interesting. This is, as you guys start to trickle in, I'm a half hour early, but I was kind of excited. So, I just want to get right into it. We have a lot of things that I want to talk about. We're going to start off with some of the games that have already happened here around the National Hockey League. And as you guys start to trickle in, we'll probably talk more about that and my thoughts. Just to start things off, though, before we get into around the league, we are going to start off with this game's pregame notes. Tonight's game we are going to be mainly focusing on is the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins, a huge matchup between the Islanders and the Penguins. And I already see some of you guys already talking about the Penguins. Let's go Pens, of course. So the pregame notes for this one, there's two pretty big storylines and one for each side, and it's injury related. For the New York Islanders, the road team heading into Pittsburgh, Matt Barzell is on an undisclosed injury. It does not look good for Barzy, and this is definitely not good news for the Islanders, losing their number one center. Obviously, things are not good for the Islanders in that regard. But really good news for the Pittsburgh Penguins, or at least we expect it to be good news for the Pittsburgh Penguins, as Tristan Jarry is back in the lineup. And it's the complete opposite side for Penguins fans. But with how they've played in their past 10 games, there is still a sense of we need to see more before I really buy into this. So starting off, the matchup, obviously, in between the pipes for the Penguins is Tristan Jarry making his return to the lineup. And for the New York Islanders, Ilya Sorokin. And the last time he played was Friday night, which was the last time these two teams met. The Islanders and the Penguins met up at UBS Arena. The Islanders won that game, a thriller at UBS Arena. That was a massive game for the Islanders and the Penguins. That was a really tough loss for them. How they followed things up on Saturday was basically mirror images in terms of the score and kind of how the game played out. Not a good start for either of those teams on Saturday. Both of them lost those games. The Islanders lost their game in Boston 6-2, while the Pittsburgh Penguins lost on home ice against their division rival, the New Jersey Devils, by a score of 5-2. That game was actually a lot closer than the score entailed, but nonetheless, that was a huge, huge game for the Penguins, and they lost that one at home. So, going into this matchup, there's definitely a little bit of a sense of urgency for both of these teams. You look at the standings. This is a huge game for both of these teams, without a doubt. They're right next to each other in the standings. And when you consider the fact that the Islanders, with all of these injuries now starting to pile up, this is quite concerning if you're an Islanders fan. Taking a look at the standings right now, technically Pittsburgh does hold that last wild card spot with 4 games in hand. And despite the Islanders having more wins than the Penguins, it is 4 games in hand for the Islanders. So the Penguins at this point get the tiebreaker. So whoever wins tonight is going to be in that final wild card spot. That is a massive, massive game tonight in Pittsburgh. As we kind of get into things here, we're going to take a look around the league now. So around the National Hockey League, we had a couple of matinee games here on President's Day here in the United States. The Ottawa Senators went up to Boston. It was a pretty competitive game, and then Boston did what they've been doing all year. The Ottawa Senators tied the game late in the first period. A Claude Giroux goal, a big one there, made it 1-1 after one. David Pastrnak picking up his 40th goal of the season. Absolutely incredible. And not to mention the Bruins end up winning this game. Jake DeBrusk gets on the board. Again, I know, shocking. And David Pastrnak ends up picking up another goal, a 2-goal game, a 40-goal season so far for Pasta, and DeBrusk on the board again. And the Bruins at home win it 3-1. They have hit 90 points already in the NHL standings, which is phenomenal. And when you consider they are the fastest team to 90 points in a season since the 1979-1980 Philadelphia Flyers, which they accomplished that in 56 games played. Um, so this is going to be very interesting to see how this season continues for the Bruins and their path to a hopefully a Stanley Cup championship here in 2023. I know I probably just jinxed them by saying that, and I think Leaf fans will be more than happy with me trying to jinx them. Continuing along, we also had another 1 o'clock game in Sunrise, Florida. The Florida Panthers hosted the Anaheim Ducks, an out-of-conference Western versus Eastern Conference game. A sleepy start for the Florida Panthers. I think the Panthers fans were pretty concerned, especially with where they are in the standings, quite concerned with how things went in that one. And then we saw kind of the Panthers doing what they needed to do. You know, they kind of came out in the second and third period and definitely played much better in the second. And then in the third period, they kind of took this one to the Anaheim Ducks, absolutely outshot them. Shout out to John Gibson. You know, he did give up 4 goals. They lose this game in overtime, but he had 55 shots on him in this game, and he played well considering the circumstance. We're finishing up these other games. The San Jose Sharks. What's going on in Seattle? The San Jose Sharks, a shutout for James Reimer, a 4-0 victory. It sounds like Reimer's trying to get his ticket out of San Jose and maybe do a cup contender here before the deadline. James Reimer looking like prime James Reimer here today against the Seattle Kraken in a shutout at SAP Center. A very interesting game in Calgary. For most of the game, it's been Philadelphia Flyers. They led this game 3-1 at one point, and now I'm trying to get the update live. This has been a really good hockey game in Alberta. And shout out to you guys coming in. Welcome as we get ready for this massive game in the Metropolitan Division. The game right now is 4-3 Philadelphia. So it was 3-1 going into the third period. Calgary scores 2 goals. John Tortorella calls the timeout, settles the boys. And next thing you know, James Van Riemsdyk, who's also trying to get his ticket out of Philadelphia, picks up a massive goal to put them ahead 4-3. So that is what we're, Calgary. Wow. Okay, so it's still 4-3. Calgary almost scored. So this is going to be an interesting last couple of minutes. I wanted to react to this game live before we get into, kind of the appetizer before we get into tonight's action. And a couple of New York teams are in action for the final 2 games on slate tonight, which we are going to talk about next. Of course, the Islanders and the Penguins at 7 o'clock. That is our featured game tonight. So stay tuned for that, as well as we are also going to be flipping back and forth as the Winnipeg Jets continue their East Coast trip in Manhattan, taking on the New York Rangers, a massive game there in Madison Square Garden as Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets lost last night in New Jersey, a massive game for the New Jersey Devils in that one. And now Hellebuyck, who I wasn't sure if he was going to play the second of that back-to-back, especially after playing last night, he's getting the start tonight as well. So it'll be Igor Shesterkin for the New York Rangers and Connor Hellebuyck. That is going to be a heck of a game at Madison Square Garden. So with that said, I'm going to start looking at what you guys are saying in the comments as well. And I'm going to kind of be going over this stuff as we kind of hit 7 o'clock. I'm going to be going over some things. So if you're still here, we're going to be probably repeating some things as we get closer to puck drop. Thank you to the 5 of you guys that have already hit the like button. If you have not hit the like button already, make sure to do that to be helping us out here. And a quick plug to our Streamlabs. Go to our Streamlabs shop in the description down below for some Goal Line Hockey merch. If you want to help support the channel, we've got mugs, hats. We got some of those. Your boy dad caps. We've got all of that stuff down below. And everything tastes better in a Goal Line Hockey mug. Just saying from personal experience. I can testify to that. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about today as we start to get into this, last night I did a live stream and it was a huge success. So thank you guys to that last night. But tonight things are going to be a little bit different depending on how things go. I'm looking for, I'm going to answer as many of your guys' questions as I can today. And I'd love to answer them all. But if you want to guarantee that I answer your question or whatever comment you want to have, make sure to leave a super chat if you want me to 100% guarantee that I answer your question. So you don't, obviously, I'm not saying you have to, but if things get kind of interesting here as we get closer to the game, I won't be able to answer all of your questions, and I apologize in advance, but I'll do the best that I can. Jesse Blade, Buffalo Sabres, red and black. Yeah, that jersey is beautiful. Let's go, Pens from Justin Me. Uh, who is that? Shefazam. Hey, bro, this should be all hands on deck with Barzy going down. Yeah, this is going to be a really big game for the Islanders. And, the Islanders fan base is not happy right now, and rightfully so. You consider that. I mean, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Josh Bailey either, but Josh Bailey being out, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, and Matt Barzal, not to mention, Oliver Wahlstrom's been out for a long time as well. So you've got really with Bailey, 3 top 6 forwards out of the lineup, and then a critical third line center in Pageau out. I mean, that's a lot to come back from. So the Islanders, yeah, they are not in an ideal situation at all right now. And this game is huge for them. This is, if they can find a way games against Pittsburgh and beat them again in March, they play again one last time. These are games that matter, and these are playoff games. If you want to talk about a team, everybody might be thinking, listen, whoever just sneaks into the playoffs has to play Boston or Carolina, or whoever wins those divisions in the East, they're going to get slogged in the first round. That's not necessarily how things go. They've been playing playoff hockey up to that point. Boston already has 90 points. They might start sitting some guys out. They might be a little more lackadaisical. And whoever is in those wild card spots in the East is going to be hungry and bitter. And, everybody's counting against them. And they're going to be the Cinderella story that might actually knock out one of those teams. So, that is something to watch for as we get to the postseason here in April, but definitely going to be something to watch here. Again, I don't want to get too optimistic as an Islander fan. I don't want to be too, putting the team down, because listen, if they win the rest of the season, the Islanders are in the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. But it's not very likely. But again, that's why they play the games. They play the games for a reason, right? Because they have to figure out the results, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. I'm going to recap some things here as well. Around the NHL, the Ottawa Senators and the Bruins, a 3-1 victory for the Bruins. Pasternak picking up his 40th and 41st goals of this season. Anaheim and Florida, the Ducks kind of were not really even outplaying the Panthers, but the Panthers showed what they are, and they played desperate. And they are another one of those teams in the East fighting for a wild card spot. They win that game 4-3 in overtime. The Seattle Kraken are struggling a little bit here as they headed back west this past week. A 3-0 shutout or 4-0 shutout against the San Jose Sharks. James Reimer with the shutout. Huge win for him. Huge shout out to James Reimer in prime James Reimer form. And welcome to some of you guys who are trickling in. And then the game I'm watching, actually the end of right now that I wanted to get to, the Philadelphia Flyers in Calgary. It's been a back and forth game. Philly led the game 3-1 going into the third. Calgary tied the game 3-3. And then John Tortorella called the timeout after that tying goal. And then James Van Riemsdyk, who currently has that goal that's keeping Calgary at bay right now with a 4-3 lead. And shout out to Sam Ersson, I think is how you pronounce it, the Philadelphia Flyers goalie tonight. He is playing quite well. And I don't want to jinx it here for the Flyers fans, but he has looked very good so far. So as this game's kind of wrapping up, I'm going to kind of give everybody a minute to get in here. Shout out to Matt Stein. Hi, I like your channel. Hey, what's up, Matt? And Darryl Sutter just called the timeout. So we'll see how things kind of play out in this one. This is a huge game for Calgary as well. With where they are in the standings, I would say that they need this game quite badly. Them, Minnesota, and Edmonton are kind of duking it out for those wildcard spots in the Western Conference. And that's kind of it. Nashville, I expect to start selling here. That loss yesterday against Minnesota was a backbreaker. That was a really, really tough loss for the Nashville Predators. And I think that's the one that's ultimately going to do them in for this season. We already know the status with St. Louis. they're going to be sellers. They've already sold Tarasenko and O'Reilly, and they got their butts kicked in yesterday as well. So I really expect this to be a 3-team race in the West between Edmonton, Minnesota, and Calgary, excuse me. So it's kind of a seller's market in the Western Conference. Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose, Vancouver, Arizona, St. Louis, and I think Nashville is the only tweener team left here. But at this point, that's kind of what we're looking at. Everybody else is kind of fair game. I think that Arizona is going to be fairly quiet depending on what they do with Chikrin. I ultimately think that's going to be a summer trade. I think the market is going to really be kind of set once he gets traded. We're going to hear more about Luke Shen, Shane Gostisbehere, Vladislav Gavrikov. And I hate to say it, even as an Islander fan, maybe even guys like Scott Mayfield, Jake McCabe in Chicago. We're going to get more clarity on those secondary guys once Chikrin is traded, or if it's even announced that maybe he doesn't get traded at the deadline and maybe they wait till the summer. So let's see here. I mean, Calgary is in a really big game here. 38 seconds left, a 4-3 lead for the Flyers. They've gotten outplayed most of this game. Shout out to the Flyers. They have not looked good at all, but they are fighting today. Like, this is something we have not seen from the Flyers in a while. This is very inspiring, if nothing else. I don't think the Flyers are making the playoffs. I don't think you're kidding anybody with that. But let's see if they could close it out. 15 seconds left. No way. 9.6 seconds. So Sam Ersson, man, he is putting on a show for the Philadelphia Flyers. So in the Eastern Conference standings, looking at the Atlantic Division, we've got the Boston Bruins leading the way. Is that surprising to anybody? Toronto and Tampa Bay. That's pretty much going to be where it's at. I think Tampa and Toronto are going to duke it out for second place in that division for home ice advantage in that first round series. And then in the Metropolitan Division, we've got Carolina, New Jersey, and the New York Rangers. And I think that division is very wide open in terms of who could ultimately win that division and end up playing a wild card team. Carolina has led the way for most of this time, but New Jersey's playing very well. The Rangers are playing phenomenal as well. I think they're on like a 10-game point streak where they've gotten a point in at least each of their last 10 games, and they've scored like 45 goals in those 10 games, which is like 4.5 goals per game. Like, absolutely absurd. The Flyers, Blue Jackets, and Capitals and the Islanders are your Metropolitan Division teams outside of the playoffs at this point. Matt Stein said, I'm a Devils fan. What moves do you think they make at the deadline? And that's it. So the Flyers win against Calgary. Very gutsy win for the Flyers. Shout out to Sam Ersson on a really nice performance. To answer your question, Matt Stein, so, but what I mean, the obvious one is Timo Meier, right? I mean, my comment section has been blowing up on the channel because everybody in New Jersey is like, yeah, we want Timo. And rightfully so, right? Like, Timo Meier is a monster. This is a really good hockey player. And when you look at what the Devils need, he is exactly what they need. He reminds me a lot of what Miles Wood or Pavel Zacha or Pavel Zacha, what they wanted those guys to become. And, unfortunately, those guys never developed into that guy. But he reminds me so much of, if you want an example around the league, think of Chris Kreider on the Rangers, but on the Devils, right? Or Anders Lee on the Islanders, right? He's going to be that type of player. And to be honest, I think he's a lot more skilled than Anders Lee on the Islanders or Chris Kreider on the Rangers. So the Devils want a leg up on their two Metropolitan Division opponents in the New York area. You get a leg up as the best power forward of those three, and that would definitely be Timo Meier. There's a lot of questions about what is going to happen with Timo Meier because, he was out the other day with an injury. So it doesn't sound like it's anything severe. I think it's going to be kind of the game of bubble wrap with Timo Meier at this point, especially with the potential draft picks and prospects at stake for Timo Meier. But at the end of the day, I'm not too concerned about Timo Meyer. He's going to end up going, if I had to say something for the Devils, I think they do they need another goalie as a backup? I think they should. I think if you find a way like a James Reimer, I think that would be a really good just depth piece to add. Um, I think that'll be a really nice addition for them going into the postseason if it's like a fourth or fifth round pick, just to have that stability behind Vanacek. And I think that's something that would be really helpful for them. As well as obviously, I think there's that sense maybe another forward, maybe not like a bigger name forward. Yeah, of course, Timo Meyer, but like another depth guy. Like when I look at the Rangers, they just added Tyler Mott. Like a guy like that, I think would be helpful for them just to add some scoring depth throughout the lineup. I look at a couple of interesting names. I look at Tanner Jeannot in Nashville. I think he would be a really good pickup for the Devils. Um, who's another one I was thinking of? Nick Bukestad in Arizona. I've been very high on him, talking about him a lot. So if you could add Timo Meyer, James Reimer for a much lower draft pick, and depending on what the price ends up being for Tanner Jeannot, maybe a guy like Jeannot or Nick Bukestad. What else are you guys saying here? State of Survival says Lou needs to get assets for Mayfield. Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. When you're looking at Lou Lamoriello and what he's going to do at the deadline, here's the thing. Here's how I want to talk about this for a second. The Islanders have to make moves here, but I think you wait till March 3rd, right? Like, there's no reason to sell everything off now. And it's not a good look for the locker room and really for the entire fan base, right? This fan base has been complaining that, ownership isn't, talking about putting a competitive product on the ice and this and that. Why would you sell 2 weeks away from the deadline? See what happens here. What if they beat Pittsburgh tonight? What if they beat Pittsburgh, after the deadline? They've got 3 more games against Washington. They could win all 3 of those games. Not saying they will, but they could, right? You're you're just giving up before you've seen what is possible. And it is statistically very unlikely the Islanders make it. But if Washington loses like the way they have, Pittsburgh's losing the way that they have, Florida's been struggling a little bit, there is a path for the Islanders to still make the playoffs, guys. So temper your expectations. I know as a fan, it's so easy to say the second they lose against Boston, trade everything off. Don't look at Twitter. That is a terrible idea. Um, teams would be so fluent every day making trade this guy because he's bad, trade that guy because he's bad. You can't do that. That's not how it works in the real world. And it definitely is not something of any GM. The last person I would expect to make that move is Lou Lamoriello. He is not that emotional guy that's going to make a move just to make a move. He is very analytical and very much that making the chess pieces work where he wants them to. He is not going to force a move. And welcome to some of you guys coming in. If you have not already, make sure to like this video and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, guys, come on. Subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? So let's hold on a second, guys. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Islanders. I mean, they could get a lot of assets. Mayfield, I think they could get a second or third round pick. Parise and Varlamov, I might be optimistic here, but they could get a first round pick for those guys. Like, imagine Parise going to like Tampa. Like, Tampa could give up a good player. And again, they don't have the draft picks necessarily, but maybe that's where Colorado it gives up, a first round pick for Parise or something like that. You could find teams that will do that. So I think Parise, if the Islanders make him available, a lot of teams will be interested. And remember, he's making, I think, $750K. He's not making a ton of money. So that could be a real asset for a cup contender. And same thing for Varlamov. I think the goalie market is kind of stale. That could end up being a real benefit here. For the New York Islanders if they do decide to move on from Varlamov. I would hate to see Varley go. I really like him, and ever since they brought him in, and hey, there you go. Thanks for the like, guys. Make sure to like the video. But it's one of those things. It's part of the game. It is what it is, but I hope they keep as many guys as they can, but if they are going to sell guys, get maximum return for them, right? And I think that's just the reality of the situation. Urban said, "You're early. I'm driving home." Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. Take your time coming in. There we go. There's the likes. There we go, boys and ladies. Um, Isles can still be competitive without Mayfield. We just need assets because I don't think we're signing him back. Yeah, I said this last night in my last live stream. I really think we're going to end up seeing Mayfield go to the St. Louis Blues. There's a lot of change going on in St. Louis right now, and I think that he would be a good, let's be honest, to get the Blues to the cap floor, or even, honestly, I think the Blues are a better team than we're giving them credit for. And Elliot Friedman said this earlier today. He said that we could potentially see Timo Meyer to the Blues. Now, he didn't say there's anything imminent or that they've been linked to Timo Meyer, but with all that draft capital they have, they don't need the draft picks and prospects. Like, they could be back in this thing next season. So if they were to add a guy like Timo Meyer, like, they would be right on course next season. The biggest problem with that is they need to find the salary, right? They need to make the room to sign him, to sign Timo Meyer to that long-term contract. That's really what you're looking at there. So that's kind of where we're at. What else are you guys saying? Um, State of survival. Do you think the Leafs beat Tampa this year and get past the first round? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a sense of optimism there. Um, when I look at what the Leafs are capable of this year, I think they're adding those meat and potato players with guys like Nola Chari, um, with guys like Ryan O'Reilly. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a close series like we saw last year. That's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to a close game 6 or game 7, and that's ultimately what's going to matter here. When I really look at what the Leafs are capable of, they can go all the way to the Stanley Cup final. I think what's going to hold this team back, if anything, is their goaltending. Are you confident that, you know, that Shalgren or Murray or Samsonov, whoever ends up being the starter in the playoffs, can they outduel Andrei Vasilevsky in a 7-game series? And to be honest with you, I don't think today that they would. So that's my thoughts there. Ange, hi, what's up, Ange? JFA, I love Mayfield and how he has been a good team player, willing to fight in the trenches, playing tough brand for the Owls. Bolduc can make him expendable, and maybe Mayfield nets a nice return. Yeah, I think part of the thing with Mayfield, which is kind of a shame, I think Bodie Wild was really supposed to be that guy on the right side. But Bodie Wild, we know how things have gone with the and that, so we know things have not gone well there. But with that said, I think there is a lot of optimism in Samuel Bolduc. I think he's a very good player. I've seen him in person. Yeah, guys, keep jacking up the likes. You guys are awesome. At the end of the day, I think that the Islanders, I really like Mayfield and some of the big goals that he has scored, as shocking as that is. That's kind of part of the equation here. But I do think the Islanders are ultimately going to have to move on from Mayfield, whether it's at the deadline this year or it ends up being over the summer. And also, guys, like I said earlier, if you guys are coming in, welcome. As we get here closer to 7 o'clock and I see more of you guys starting to come in here, welcome. But I'm going to answer as many questions as I can today and comments. But if you want to guarantee 100% that I answered your question or comment, make sure to give a super chat and I will answer it as soon as possible. So let's see if we could get the stream, because don't tell anybody, but I'm doing the good old pirate bootleg. I'm not paying for ESPN Plus. Come on, guys. No, we're not doing that. There's so many streaming services that are out there that you don't have to do that, and I will not be doing that either. So what we're looking at, just to recap on the day as we get here at 7 o'clock, our look around the National Hockey League. The Ottawa Senators lost 3-1 in Boston. Pasternak picking up his 40th and 41st goals of the season. He has had an incredible year. The Bruins continue to chug along, and they haven't hit 90 points this season. And they are the first team, or the fastest team, to do that since the Philadelphia Flyers back in the 1979-1980 season in 56 games. Absolutely incredible. The Bruins are on fire with another win today. Also, another non-conference matchup in Florida. The Anaheim Ducks played pretty well early against the Florida Panthers, but the Panthers in desperation mode, another one of those teams in the East trying to fight their way tooth and nail for a playoff spot, a 4-3 overtime victory, a big character win. It's not how you win the games, it's that you pick up the 2 points. That's what the Florida Panthers did today against the Anaheim Ducks. And shout out to John Gibson. He played really well in that game and gave the Ducks a point in that game, like gave them a point. Interesting situation in Seattle. Maybe we'll talk about that later. The Seattle Kraken get shut out 4-0 in SAP Center against the San Jose Sharks. Shout out to James Reimer, a really good game for him and the San Jose Sharks, and kind of ruining the tank for Bedard there in San Jose. A really good hockey game in Calgary. A 3-1 lead going into the third period for the Philadelphia Flyers. They were outplayed, outclassed by the Calgary Flames, but they had a 3-1 lead after 2. And Calgary ended up coming back, tying the game 3-3 late in the third period. John Tortorella calls a timeout. The stoic head coach that he always is, right? Calls the timeout, and James Van Riemsdyk gets the game winner, a 4-3 win for the Philadelphia Flyers as they continue their West Coast road trip. It's been a brutal stretch here for the Flyers, but after how they played on Sunday, a huge character win for them on the second of a back-to-back, a really tough schedule, and the Flyers showed some grit. And I think that is something, if nothing else for Flyers fans out there, something to be quite positive about going into this week. And shout out to Sam Urson. Really good performance from him as well. And as we hit 7 o'clock here, welcome to the bunch of you coming in. Tonight's matchup, the focal point game or the featured game tonight, the New York Islanders heading to the Steel City to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. The starting goalie matchup tonight, Ilya Sorokin for the New York Islanders. His last game was Friday night when these two teams last met. And Tristan Jarry making his return to the lineup after being injured. Tristan Jarry is back in between the pipes for your Pittsburgh Penguins. Elsewhere around the league tonight, there's only one other game on tap, which we will be flipping back and forth between, as another New York area team, the New York Rangers, at home at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan, hosting the Winnipeg Jets as they continue their East Coast swing in the New York metro area. They had a tough night last night, a 4-3 loss against the New Jersey Devils, and Connor Hellebuyck getting back-to-back starts. So that is Winnipeg in playoff mode. They are ready for this thing, and Connor Hellebuyck said, yeah, I don't care if I played last night. I'm playing tonight too. And that's going to be a great matchup there as we flip back and forth between that one, because the goalie matchup in that one is going to be stellar. Connor Hellebuyck for the Jets and Igor Shesterkin for the New York Rangers. So let's take a look at what you guys are saying in the comments. Like I said, if you want to guarantee that I answer your questions, make sure to give a super chat. And welcome to some of you coming in here a little bit later. What else do we got here? Dingbat said, with Barzy out, do you think we can still make a wild card spot? I think Bolduc will be an elite defenseman. Loved watching him this year so far. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Bolduc next season. We're going to see a little bit of him here probably down the stretch, especially if they trade out a defenseman like Scott Mayfield at the deadline. We're going to see even more of Samuel Bolduc. Yeah, I think they could still make a wild card spot. I've already talked about that earlier. I think that the Islanders are still in a position to make it. You know, there's a lot of games that the Islanders have on some of those other teams, but if they beat Pittsburgh tonight, they play Pittsburgh again in mid-March, the second week of March in Pittsburgh, and they play Washington 3 more times. I'm not saying they have to win all those games, but if they do and those teams continue to falter and lose, the Islanders have as good of odds as any of those other teams, right? And those games only matter if they win those games. So if Florida, Washington, and Pittsburgh have those games in hand, they still have to win them. It's not like a guarantee that those are already points on the board, right? They go on a 4-game losing streak. That's it. That's their games in hand anyway, right? So just something to remember here as we get into this. It's going to be a very interesting stretch in the Eastern Conference. Things are kind of settling down in the West, right? I think Nashville's going to start to sell. St. Louis already hardcore sold. So there's only one team that I think is going to end up being disappointed really in the playoff race in the West. So let's see if the game loaded yet. Quick water break. Okay, so the Islanders broadcast is on. I'm not watching Pittsburgh. Yeah, so a couple of big storylines going into this game. Tristan Jarry back in the lineup for Pittsburgh. And, of course, Matt Barzal out indefinitely. We got the news earlier today. According to David Pagnotta, he also said, it's likely he could be out as long as 8 weeks. So not good news for the Islanders front on Matt Barzal. Potentially 8 weeks on a Matt Barzal injury. It was such an awkward hit. It wasn't even like a bad hit or anything like that. It was just really awkward the way he kind of twisted into the boards. And, unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at right now. It's not a great spot for the Islanders, but they're still in the chase. And that's all you could ask for at this point in the season, right? You want to have a chance, right? All I'm asking for is a chance. Like I said earlier, guys, I'll answer as many of your questions as I can. But if you give a super chat, I will answer it right on the spot ASAP. And welcome to some of you guys that are coming in here as we get ready for puck drop. I want to hear some of your guys' predictions in the comments down below. Who do you guys think is going to win this game between the Islanders and the Penguins? Leave your score as well as who gets the game winner. Leave that down below. So like I talked about as well, we're also going to flip between the Winnipeg Jets and the New York Rangers feed. That's a really big game at MSG for both of those teams. They are playoff teams in their own right. But it's especially for the Jets, this kind of gut check time for them. They had a tough loss last night in Newark, and they're looking to bounce back on the second of a back-to-back against a very loaded, hungry, ready to win a Stanley Cup, potentially, New York Rangers squad. You can't take them lightly. It's a big game for them. Connor Hellebuyck playing back-to-back nights. Just what a trooper Hellebuyck is. And this is going to be a big game for the Jets, as much as it is for the Rangers. The first time we're going to see Tyler Mott back in the Rangers sweater from last season. He got traded from the Ottawa Senators last night. Just to talk a touch about the Rangers, honestly, I think that the Rangers are in a spot right now where I think a lot of the fan base was actually upset with the trade. They don't think that there was much of a gap between Tyler Mott and Julien Gauthier, who actually went the other way to Ottawa. I think this is a preliminary move to make another move. I think that's really what this was about. When I really look at it, I think they do like Tyler Mott. They did try to re-sign him during the summer last year. Just things didn't materialize. And welcome to you guys coming in. Make sure to give this a thumbs up. Make sure to do that and subscribe. Okay, so we're getting closer to puck drop here. This is going to be a big, big matchup. They're getting ready for they did the national anthem. Or maybe they're doing it now. Yeah, they're doing like pregame ceremony, puck drops, whatever. So I think the Rangers are going to make another move. Now, whether that's a Patrick Kane or potentially as much as a Jake McCabe in Chicago, right? It could be something so big or so small. But at the end of the day, I think Rangers see a real opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. And I think you look at that roster, they have the roster to do it, right? I mean, you look up and down, they've got so many good players on this team. There is so much that they are capable of this year. And listen, if they go out there, make the playoffs, and do what they can do in those first couple rounds, pick up a couple wins, Shesterkin's playing out of his mind, they could be right where they were last year. And next thing you know, we could see them parading down the route there in Times Square. As crazy as that sounds, and as much as it hurts my gut as an Islander fan, it is a reality we could potentially see here this spring. There's a couple of other things I want to talk about as well. So puck drop is underway. Okay, so let's see how this goes. So the lines are kind of interesting. The fourth line is completely nuked. It's Johnston, Andrioff, and Cizikas, I think. Yeah, so leave your guys' predictions for this game. And Urban said Pens 4-2, Gensel winner. Don't like that pick, Urban. But you know what? It could happen. The thing is, I would say a lower scoring game, but with how these teams played the other night and Jari's first game back, you don't know necessarily how he's going to play. I would like to say Sorokin's not going to give up more than 2 or 3, but you never really know. Sorokin has been struggling since the All-Star break a little bit. And he's got to get back on track. If this is the game he gets back on track, this is the game to do it. Like this is a huge one for him and the Islanders as a team. Yeah, so right now they're looking at the Penguins record 27, 19, and 9, fourth in the Metro. Obviously, that is such a tight division. And, things are going to be very interesting stretch for the Penguins. I know they're looking to make a move. We could actually get into that right now. So, my Pittsburgh Penguins trade deadline preview, I've already talked about it a little bit. But from what I've gathered, there's really three things that they could do here. The first thing being is a third line center. I think that's something that they really would like to add here and add some depth outside of the top six. They'd like to get some more help from the bottom six here, especially if you want to play teams like Boston or Carolina in the first round. You have to be able to compete with them down the middle or at least make things interesting. A couple of names that I've heard thrown toward the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is a little bit more of a nostalgia pick, but from the San Jose Sharks, Nick Bonino. Obviously, he was a part of the BJK line back in the day with Kessel. I don't think it's realistic. I think Nick Bonino is a shell of what he used to be, and is actually part of the problem in San Jose, if I have to be honest. The price tag might actually be quite interesting. It might be attractive enough to the Penguins where they don't have to give up a ton of great assets, but I think that there's other players out there that would be more attractive per se to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Boone Jenner. He's going to be a lot more expensive. And I think that's really maybe the halting point to maybe making that trade. But it is something at the very least to take a look at. And then my third option, and this is maybe a guy that maybe could be more of a winger, but Max Domi. I think Max Domi could be a nice fit there as well. You could tell the Islanders are peppering Tristan Jarry with shots right now. This is really a big game in the Metropolitan Division. I think everybody around the Metro is watching this one. The Devils fans can sit back and relax, and the Islanders and Penguins fans can sit on the edge of their seat. Even if this could get interesting down the stretch, great chance for Pittsburgh there. So that's what I'm looking at for centers. And welcome to some of you guys coming in. Make sure to give this video a like. Make sure to do that. So for a third line center for the Penguins, if I had to pick right now, if I had a gun to my head, I would like to see Max Domi go to Pittsburgh. I think he's a good fit, honestly, for what the Pittsburgh Penguins are looking to add. And what's good about Domi is he could even take over the left wing side of the second line and play with Rust and Malkin. Now, I know there's some chemistry there with Jason Zucker, but I think I'd rather have Max Domi there than Jason Zucker. And that way now your third line gets better by just virtue of Jason Zucker being a second line winger now going to the third line. I think, again, they could juggle the lines a little bit. And I think that's the flexibility with a guy like Max Domi. I think the best player here is absolutely Boone Jenner, but I know Compass is going to ask for a first-round pick. Absolutely. For Boone Jenner. That's going to be a more difficult deal to make. The other thing we've looked at is depth defensemen in Pittsburgh. It kind of varies. I've heard Jake McCabe's name linked to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that is definitely something that we should be watching. So that's something to look at. Also, another thing is the goaltending, and the goaltending can vary as well. I've heard John Gibson's name, who's a native Pittsburgh guy, his name thrown out there. And I've also heard guys like Jonas Korpisalo from Columbus, Kirill Vejmelka. Anybody could be out there. If they want a more cheaper option, I think James Reimer could be an interesting option for the Penguins, but there's a lot of different things that the Penguins can do. I think that the fan base is just waiting for something. Right? It's like that meme where like you're poking the stick, you're like, do something. I think that's the Penguins fan base right now with this team. They just want to see them do something, right? Do something for the love of God. I think that's where this group is at. Kind of an interesting start here between the Islanders and Penguins. Not really too much. Both teams kind of maybe sniffing each other out a little bit. Nobody wants to make that critical mistake. Definitely playoff hockey. And from when we've seen them play in the playoffs, this is very similar to that, right? Nobody wants to make that critical mistake. And welcome to some of you guys that have been coming in. What else are you guys saying here? 3-2 Islanders from Matt Stein. Zach Candido said, "Hey, how's it going? I'm a Leafs fan." Yeah, you know what? The Leafs, they look good this year, but I think it's going to be very difficult. I was saying earlier that their matchup against Toronto, I think their Achilles heel could end up being the goaltending. Unless one of these goalies really stands out and becomes that number one, you have to be able to outduel Andrei Vasilevsky for potentially 6 or 7 games. That's a really difficult task. Like, that is really asking for a lot. So despite how good their forward group looks, and there is still holes on that blue line, and maybe Tampa is finding maybe a little bit of a weakness on the blue line as well. I expect them to make another move here before the deadline. So take with that what you will. But I think that that matchup, I have to lean toward Tampa because of Vasilevsky. And that's why Tampa Bay has been so good, is because of that goaltending. And if you're just joining us, guys, make sure to give this video a big like. Make sure to do that and subscribe to the channel as well. And if you guys want me to answer your questions as soon as possible, make sure to super chat as well. Oh, so the Islanders got a chance. So things are opening a little bit here. We're 5 minutes into the game between the Penguins and the Islanders. 0-0. Pittsburgh scores. There you go, Gensel. I don't know what Sorokin was doing on that. That was not a great play by Sorokin. Not good. Got to be better than that. And I don't know who was in front. It was probably Mayfield. No, it was the Pelech-Pulak pairing. Just a whole lot of not good. Not good for either. Not good for the Islanders there. You got to be better than that. Yeah. What else did Urban Gensel? Yeah, you were right, man. You said potentially 4-2 game winner. We'll see here. Big night in store for Gensel. He had that. I don't know if you saw the other night when they played the Devils in the final minute before the Devils made it 5-2. It was 4-2, and he was about to score, and Vitek Vanacek robbed him, like stone cold robbed him. So we'll see how things play out. But a pretty interesting start here. Things, yeah, like I said, the first 5 minutes, things were really quiet, and now all of a sudden things have picked up here as we're kind of moving into the first period. Let's take a look at the Ranger game. What do we got on tap in this one? Any goals? Oh, so Winnipeg. Josh Morrissey, he has been on fire. Nobody's talking about Josh Morrissey. He has been very, very good. He could potentially win the Norris this year. I think he reminds me a lot of Adam Fox. A lot of Adam Fox. Adam Fox, it's just taken him so long to develop. I think a lot of people haven't given enough time for Josh Morrissey. And let's be honest, the Jets weren't very good last year, and things have just not really gone that well for them recently. But this year, the Jets have a chance to really make some noise. We talked about it earlier. What I think, honestly, the Jets could be very active at the deadline. And dare I say they go for Timo Meier. Again, it depends on what the Devils maybe give up. But I think anything that starts with Cole Perfetti, I think the Jets say no to. But other than that, I think that there's a lot that could be on the table for them. So far, it seems like kind of an open game for the odd man rush. Yeah, and the Rangers made another move the other day, bringing in Tyler Mott, bringing him back to Manhattan. Yeah, it's been kind of an interesting. Oof, this is going to be a good game, I think. I think this could be a high-scoring game, despite how good the goalies are in Hellebuck and Shesterkin. They're playing very wide open so far, from what I've seen here. I mean, maybe things will settle down in this Rangers Jets game. Um, but right now, things are pretty wide open. It's pretty quiet at the Garden. Maybe that's just kind of takes some of the wind out of the sails. Some of you guys are saying the Rangers are losing. What else are you guys saying in here? And like I said, if you want me to guarantee, if you want to guarantee that I answer your question, make sure to leave a super chat. What else are you guys saying in here? Ooh. Yeah, I think a lot of Rangers fans aren't happy with Precision in the lineup, and I kind of get that, right? Like if you're talking about a cup contender, you don't want Tanner Precision in the lineup. You want maybe a little bit more depth than that, and I think that's why the Rangers are probably still looking at making another move here. I don't think they're done yet. But for the most part, I think that what we've seen from the Rangers, like even the other night, they were in what was it, Edmonton? And they looked awful. They were down 4-1 and they find ways to win even if they're down a couple goals. Like they've got that in their head that they're never out of a game, even down 3 goals. And that is the most dangerous thing. That is the resiliency and kind of that extra firepower that keeps them going. They are going to be a really really tough team to play against. And so there we go. There's the Ranger game. And let's see if I missed anything in the Islander. Oh no! Oh, I thought Pittsburgh scored again. Okay. So what else are you guys saying in here? I'm relaxed. Yeah, Gensel. Urban said, "Did you see the Ottinger rob of Spurgeon last week in OT?" No, I did not. I did not see that. Matt Stein said, "Yes, Rangers are losing." Yeah, I think as an Islander fan, that's something at least positive to start, despite the Islanders losing 1-0. Urban said, "What amazes me is how long we've been watching Crosby, and he hasn't aged, still producing, playing his way." Yeah, I've said that. I've said for the past 2, or really not this year, but last year, I've said that I think the Penguins are going to start to decline and miss the playoffs and this and that. But Crosby and Malkin have just been such like a wagon. They're still finding ways to win. And this could finally be the year that they maybe miss the playoffs. But even if they miss, like, is it the worst thing in the world? Again, I think it's more of a situation with the Islanders. Like, if Pittsburgh here trades their first round pick and then misses the playoffs, there might be a little bit more, biting the nails and stuff like that. But as of right now, I'm not. I think Hextall is playing the wait and see approach. I think he wants to see what Pittsburgh's going to be capable of here over these games against the Islanders and kind of see what they're looking at before they make the big move. Because now the Islanders, not that I'm not a fan of the Horvat trade now, but when you think about it, it's kind of like, oh, they made that trade and they're going to miss the playoffs. And now you got that whole first round pick looming over your head. And maybe Hextall is kind of like sees the foresight in that and is like, I don't want to trade my first round pick before I know where we're at. And it might end up being patience becoming a virtue for the Penguins and specifically those fans in the Steel City. Yeah, so a lot of you guys keep saying, do you think the Islanders will make the playoffs without Barzal? Yeah, so apparently it looks like he's going to be out of the lineup for potentially the next 8 weeks. So maybe it's not as devastating as him missing training camp next year and all of that. Maybe it is. But David Pagnotta said that to the extent of the injury, it maybe looks like an 8-week situation for Barzal, which is still a long time. That's up to the deadline. Or no, way past the deadline. That's the next 2 months. Sorokin just robbed Malkin. Holy crap. Yeah, Gino has been on fire, right? I mean, Evgeny Malkin he's another one with Crosby. It's like, how do you beat this team with those two? It's incredible. And that's why I think there's so much of a threat with Draisaitl and McDavid. If they keep them long term, no matter how bad that team is around them, they're always going to be in the conversation for the playoffs. just because of how good those two players are. What a save by Sorokin. Holy God. Wow. Very nice save. Daddy Sorokin. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And also, guys, while this game is going, I know it's a little bit cheating now, but leave your predictions for what this game is going to be between the Islanders and the Penguins in Pittsburgh. Leave your predictions for the score as well as a game winner. We've already got a couple of you guys in there, so we'll see if you guys are right. And also make sure to like the video. That really helps us out here at Goal Line Hockey. And this is a milestone moment here for the channel. This is the first time I've ever done it. I've been trying to set up the right stuff. I've got a camera here that I'm not using that I'd like to use. I'm using the webcam. Those are things we could work on as we kind of get further into this thing. Yeah, so do I think the Islanders can make the playoffs? It's anybody's guess. That's kind of, shaking the magic 8 ball and see what happens. Looks like the Islanders are getting a power play. Oh, so Penguins probably. That sounds about right. So let's see what's going on at MSG. Uh-oh. Vincent Trocheck's in the box. No. Did I miss a fight? Gagne fight? Oh, come on. I missed a fight. Well, apparently Vincent Trocheck and Sam Gagne fought. To the extent, I can't tell you, but they fought. Not exactly who I thought would be fighting, but there you go. Trying to get the Jets into the game, the Rangers into the game. Interesting start. What else you guys got in here? Where does Jason Zucker go after this year? Do you want to see him back in Minnesota, Urban? Maybe. There's a chance that could happen. And welcome to some of you guys that are coming into the video. Making Goal Line Hockey history. This is the first time we're doing a live reaction to a game. I expect to do this maybe not every single night, but I'll give you guys a head up. Make sure you guys are on our Twitter and our Instagrams, preferably our Twitter, because I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to post on our Instagram. There's a couple of behind the scenes things I'm having problems with the Instagram. But for Twitter, absolutely. If you want the latest news on our live streams, make sure to follow at goal_hockey. I know it's kind of hard to read that, but there you go for that. We're flipping back and forth between the Islanders and the Penguins game, which is obviously the focal point today. But we're also taking a look at the Rangers and the Jets game at Madison Square Garden today as well. On a quick update, the Penguins are up 1-0. Jake Gensel goal about to go on the power play, and the Winnipeg Jets are up 1-0 on the New York Rangers. So the New York teams are down 1-0, and Sam Gagne and Vincent Trocheck in a fight. Kind of interesting. So Penguins power play, man, if they go up 2-0 here, this is going to remind me a lot of Saturday. And I'd like to forget Saturday sooner rather than later because the Islanders played awful in that game against the Bruins. Like, you could tell pretty early on, and maybe it was Barzal not being out there. Does he make that big of a presence? I don't know. I mean, obviously he does in terms of scoring and stuff, but they played awful. And the Bruins kind of walked their way through the first 5 minutes, and then boom, boom, boom. And it was 3-0, and that was it. Game over. GG. Bruins win that one. And you kind of knew once it was 3-0, Linus Ullmark was not giving up 3 in 40 minutes against the Islanders. It's not happening. The Islanders aren't threatening enough, especially against the Bruins, nonetheless. And I did go to that game at UBS Arena where I think it was 5-2 or 6-2 or something like that. And it was kind of written on the wall pretty early on for the Islanders on its Saturday. And this is a big game for the Penguins as well. They lost 5-2 against the Devils at home in a matinee game. That was a tough loss for the Penguins. They've lost their past 2 games against Metropolitan Division opponents, and especially that Islander game on Friday. So they as much as the Islanders need this one, the Penguins kind of need this one really bad as well. So these should be two desperate teams who are still nonetheless trying to make the playoffs, but even more so with how awful both of these teams played on Saturday. I think there's that little, you would expect a sense of urgency and desperation tonight. And welcome to some of you guys coming in. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave your predictions for this game down below. Who's going to win the game, as well as the goal scorer for the game winner. Leave that down below. Oh, no, I see Tavares in there. Please. None said, is John Tavares the greatest Islander ever? I don't know if you're trolling me. I mean, let's put it this way. In my 22 years on the planet, being completely pragmatic, yes, John Tavares in my lifetime is the best New York Islander ever. That cup era Islanders, I would say there's a couple of guys. I mean, obviously, I think the best all-time Islander is probably Dennis Potvin, or I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. I mean, Brian Trottier, you could throw him in the mix. Mike Bossy. Like, Mike Bossy is the Islanders' Alexander Ovechkin from the 80s. So in my generation, yes, John Tavares. I know you're probably a Leafs fan just wanting to hear me say that, but yes, I'll say it for you. I don't care because it's true. I'll be straight up with you. I have no resentment to John Tavares, an Islander fan. I don't care. I'm kind of happy he hasn't won a cup there. But other than that, he's still a person like you or me. I don't get that wrapped up in it. I used to, like throwing remotes and punching the TV and some of that crazy stuff. But you can't invest yourself too much into it because they play again, right? So even if they lose a game, they're up 5-0 going into the third period and give up 9 and lose 5-9. You could be as mad as possible, and I would be very mad too. They play another hockey game. Unless the world ends, they play another hockey game. It's not the end of the world, right? So that's kind of how I look at things. I'm a little bit more, again, maybe it's not the most, it's a little more boring and not as animated as like Steve Dangle or one of those guys, but more stoic approach, I like to think of it. More pragmatic. What else are you guys saying? R. Jones, Blue Jackets taking the Stanley Cup, baby. Yes, I think that is definitely on the table. Maybe the Connor Bedard Cup. Is that what you're talking about? The Connor Bedard Stanley Cup this year? I think that's more likely for the Blue Jackets, but shout out to you. And guys, like I said earlier, I want to talk about a couple of other things today too. So if you guys want to guarantee that I answer your question on the spot at that second, super chat. I will answer your super chats as soon as I get it. So we talked about Pittsburgh earlier for some of you coming in. We talked about the Penguins and some of their needs. They need a third line center. I think that's probably their biggest priority. A depth defenseman, hopefully on the left side. And I think a goaltender. Again, to what extent I've heard John Gibson's name thrown out there, the Pittsburgh native. I would like to see them even go after a guy like James Reimer in San Jose, especially with his shutout today. There's a couple things that the Penguins can do. Keep an eye out for guys like Nick Bonino, Boone Jenner, Max Domi, and Jake McCabe in Pittsburgh. Those are some of the guys I would watch out for as a Penguins fan. Maybe even Brock Besser. I think that's a possibility, but I think the salary is going to be tough to make that move. They probably have to trade Kapanen the other way, and they might have to give up a higher draft pick if Vancouver's taking that Kapanen salary. It just might not even be worth it. What else do we got? So for the Islanders, the Islanders side of things, I really don't know what to say. I don't think they're going to buy any more than they did with Bo Horvat. They're definitely not picking up rentals. I think that's off the table, especially trading your first round pick already. But they could eventually sell. And we're only making this argument just to make argument's sake. I'm not really thinking they will do this, but I think they could get a first or second round pick for both Varlamov and Semyon Varlamov. Semyon Varlamov or Zach Parise, and potentially a second or third round pick for Scott Mayfield. I think there will be teams in the market to pick up some of those guys if the Islanders made them available. Parise is having a decent season. He's got I think 15 or 17 goals this year, and he's making league league minimum, like 750K. Very good cup contenders that are cap crunched can add him to their lineup, and that's another 15 to 20 goals this season that they could be adding. Yeah, Pittsburgh is definitely giving it to the Islanders right now. Sorokin standing on his head, Daddy Sorokin. But yeah, the Islanders, this is what we've seen from the Islanders. This is not anything new. I'm not really surprised, but it is just so it's frustrating, man. It's tough watching the Islanders just they just don't seem to have it. Like they're not I mean, I'd like to say it's because they're not skilled, but it's like they don't have the depth, and it's like they don't have the speed either. They're just not a very fast team, and that was a big problem last year. We're kind of seeing that carry over this year. So whether it's Lane Lambert or Barry Trotz or whoever the coach is, if the team itself out there is not good enough, it doesn't really matter. Another thing I want to talk about as we're getting closer to the deadline, I want to hear your guys' thoughts about Timo Meier. And this is where the Devils fans might be, Timo Meier. He's talking about Timo Meier. There's a lot of teams linked to Timo Meier. We've heard the Vegas Golden Knights, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Winnipeg Jets, and the New Jersey Devils. If I had to guess right now, leave your picks from those 4 teams I mentioned, the Vegas Golden Knights, Carolina Hurricanes, Winnipeg Jets, and the New Jersey Devils. Who is the best asset on each of those teams? Because at the end of the day, that's what the San Jose Sharks, Will Greer, is going to look at when he makes the trade. He wants to see who has the best asset to make that deal, because everybody presumably has their first round pick and your top prospect. Who is that package going to start off with? And that's where everything's going to fall from there. So I think it's very important that that is the basic premise of the deal starting off. So leave that down below. Who are the top players available for Timo Meier in a trade? So we'll get into that in a little bit. Thank you guys for checking us out here at Goal Line Hockey. This is a milestone here for us. So welcome to some of you that are coming in here and there. I appreciate that very much. And let's get the likes up to 20 here. I know there's one of you out there that is not like the video. Get that up to 20 likes. I know you're out there. There's someone out there. Make sure to help us out with that. So far, I've watched this game a little bit. There we go. Thank you guys so much for getting us to 20 likes. So I'm trying to get a feel for this game. It's kind of the opposite between the Islanders game and the Rangers game. The Ranger game seemed like it was more wide open in the first 5 minutes, and the Islander game was very conservative. And now they've kind of flipped. Things have opened up for the Penguins, and things have kind of slowed down for the Rangers-Jets game. Rangers are getting a couple of chances here. Thank you guys for the likes. You guys are awesome. Thank you. We're up to 22. Yeah, Fox just sold the call. He happened to be in Fox's way, and the good old, very good acting. He could do acting on Broadway too. Why not do both, right? If you're Adam Fox. Just saying. And how's the audio, guys? Can you guys give me a 1 in the chat if the audio is good? Just to let me know if it's too loud, too quiet. Let me know. Yeah, the Rangers, I mean, the Penguins are just beating the Islanders. I didn't get to watch a ton of the game the other day, but it has not been a what's the word? A positive start. Yeah, the Islanders are getting outshot 16-5. Wow. So Pittsburgh has come to play, at least here for the first period. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this game's going to end up being, Urban said 4-2. I could see it being 4-2, 4-3, 3-2, something like that. I think both of these teams are very capable of, if they make the playoffs, it could be a very quick 4 or 5 game series or go on a deep run. It's kind of anybody's guess. It depends on how they're playing going into the playoffs. If they like limp their way in and they're like winning a game, losing a game, winning a game, losing a game, and that team just stumbles into the playoffs, it could be a very easy meal for Boston or Carolina in the first round. But if these teams start to put it together, it could be a pretty interesting first round for whoever is up against Boston and Carolina. Yeah, the Islanders are just the same things we're seeing every game. Turnovers in their own end. Romanov, just like what is going on? There's like 3 Islanders in the middle of the house, and then the Penguin just shoots it. I don't know, man. It's gonna be a long, long spring for the Islanders. I hate to say it. I'm trying to be optimistic, but not a good start for the Islanders. So during the intermission, I want to talk about some mock trades for Timo Meier and Patrick Kane. So leave some mock trades for Timo Meier and Patrick Kane down in the comment section down below if you are here. And like I said, if you want to guarantee that I answer your questions, leave a super chat down below. That would help me out. I will answer it right away. Wow, the Islanders have the puck in Pittsburgh zone. They probably could have done a cleaning of the ice on that end the past 10 minutes, but I guess they'll wait till the end of the period to be courteous, right? Maybe Ross Johnson will get a breakaway. That'll go well. Yeah, so definitely, I would say in terms of winning the first period, by a long shot, Pittsburgh won the first period by a long shot. The Islanders, this is what they've done, and this is why they're struggling. They have not played well, and it's just kind of just beating them up. They beat themselves up more so than anything, honestly. And give Pittsburgh credit. They came out and played the first period. But I'm sure Penguins fans aren't satisfied because we saw things went Friday. They want to see 60 minutes of a full effort, and that's what they're going to need tonight because the Islanders are going to be desperate. For all I'm saying about them, they're gonna get their opportunities. We'll see. Oh man, so this game's getting a little bit aggressive. Gagne and Trocheck with a fight. Now we got some scrums here. Rangers power play. This is a good game at the Garden tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said earlier, guys, leave some mock trades for Timo Meier and Patrick Kane down in the comment section down below. We're going to take a look at some of those as we get into the intermission because there's no games other than these tonight. So we'll be looking at that. Yeah, Hellebuck, I don't know what he did. He kind of just gave up the puck. Yeah, you could tell. I think Winnipeg's very cranky with how things went yesterday against the Devils. We'll see if they're able to hold up till the third because they did play. This is the second of a back-to-back, and for Hellebuck as well. He's playing both nights back-to-back. So there's going to be a test of will for the Jets. Oh, wow. Brendan Dillon and Jacob Trouba. I would love to see that. I don't know if Dylan wants to see that, but chance for the Jets. No way. Wow, Scheifele. So 2-0 Jets. Wow. You jinxed the Ranger game, yeah. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. Yeah, the Rangers are going to be cranky here, I think, going into the second period. This is a couple of fights. It's been a good game at the Garden, but things are not going so well for them right now. Yeah, Shesterkin should have had that. He should have gloved that, and play should have been dead there. Good awareness by Scheifele, though. He just followed the puck, and there you go. Pair of goals for the Jets here after 17 minutes. And guys, if you're coming in, make sure to like the video. That helps us out here at Goal Line Hockey. So I know there's at least one of you out there. I'm watching you. Make sure to like the video, please. And like I said, in the intermission of the Rangers-Jets game, we are also going to be going over mock trades for Patrick Kane and Timo Myers. So we'll be doing that in the intermission. And like I said, if you want to guarantee that I answer your question, make sure to leave a super chat as well. Yeah, but see, here's the thing with the Rangers. Even though they're down 2-0, if I'm a Jets fan, I wouldn't be too excited because they were down 4-1 in Edmonton and ended up winning that game in overtime. Like the Rangers, all it takes is a goal and a little bit of momentum. Uh, The Rangers are one power play from getting this game back to a game. I'm not that concerned right now if I'm a Rangers fan. But kind of the same thing as the Islanders. I mean, a little bit more concerning because they're down two, but they have the firepower to just instantly, within 2 or 3 minutes, make it a game. And I think that's, like I said, they always say the most dangerous lead in hockey is a 2-goal lead because, oh, it's all right, we've got a 2-goal lead. And then they give up one. And now it's a 1-goal game. And now they tie it. And now it's tied. So that's where you kind of get caught on your back foot. And the Jets have to be careful of that, especially on the second of a back-to-back. Good save by Hellebuck. So let's take a look at what you guys are saying in the comments. What are you guys saying? As a Sabres fan, I just want one of these teams to win in regulation. No 3-point game. You are doing a nice job with your site. Thanks, John K. I appreciate that. None said the greatest Islander is a Leafs. Interesting. I didn't say that. I said in my generation, for the past 20 years, I would agree with you. I think John Tavares is. But he never won a cup with the Islanders, and he hasn't won a cup yet with the Leafs. So just saying, until he wins a cup, let's hold up on the Tavares talk. And I remember last year, a lot of Leafs fans were ripping Tavares apart. So I like the banter. You guys are awesome for that. But I am just saying that it's all for fun, guys. Nothing personal. Chance here for the Rangers. What else are you guys saying in here? Blue Jackets taking the Stanley Cup. Yeah, I read that. At least he played the Minnesota. At least he played there. Minnesota's best center ever is a Leaf, Ryan O'Reilly. And there you go. There you go. I could see Meyer not even get traded due to him being an RFA. I don't think a lot of teams are worried about his qualifying offer next summer. He has a big qualifying offer. I think it's like 9 or 10 million on a qualifying offer. 9 or 10 million AAV, but with how he's playing, I think teams are just going to lock him up long term. I'm not that concerned about that RFA thing, but you do have a good point there. Maybe it keeps one or two teams from maybe pressing the button on the move, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's that going. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to matter that much to a team that really, really wants him. You think the Rangers should have got Kane? Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think that the Rangers see the funny with Tarasenko, he's been injured a lot too, like Patrick Kane. Oh man, this is a really great and Rangers. This is an entertaining, good game. And there was a fight, couple goals, maybe not for the Rangers fans, but a couple goals. Kind of interesting so far. I think at the end of the day, Right now, if I had to pick Kane or Tarasenko, I think mentally Kane needs to go more than anything. I think he's a better player than what I did. I know he's got the hip injury, but I think you saw his celebration the other night, the amount of emotion he had when he scored that hat trick against the Leafs. Like, this is a guy that has more to give. I think he's just waiting to get out. And we're going to talk about that in the mock trade. So, like I said, guys, earlier, leave your mock trades for Patrick Kane and Timo Meier. We'll talk about that in the intermission. So, another Rangers power play. This is if the Jets need to get out of this period. You cannot give up a goal here. And it's 35 seconds left, but with how good the Rangers team is, definitely on a power play. Never a guarantee with 27 seconds left. Nope. And this is in a sense where I'm happy the Islanders aren't playing the Rangers the rest of this season. Everybody complains that the Islanders and Rangers aren't playing. The last time they met was before Christmas and they don't play again. I think in this circumstance, as an Islander fan, I think the Islanders maybe dodged a bullet in that regard because I saw a game last year at UBS where the Islanders got torched by the Rangers and it wasn't very fun. So in that sense, I'm actually kind of happy about it. Guys, like I said, leave mock trades for Patrick Kane and Timo Meier down below. I'm going to take a quick pee break. I'll be right back. All right. What's up, guys? All right. So we have some things to talk about here in the intermission. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Timo Meier and Patrick Kane mock trade stuff. So the thing that I'm looking at, because a lot of people have said Vegas and even Dallas and things like that for some of these guys, who is their best asset and are they willing to give up that best asset? Those are the two big questions that we need to answer before a deal gets done. So for starters, for Timo Meier, um, the Vegas Golden Knights, who is their best prospect? Because I think that is going to dictate how far along Vegas can go in this. I think they can get that deal done, but they need to have somebody that they can kind of dangle to San Jose that's basically to the level of someone that New Jersey's giving up, like an Alexander Holtz or a Shakir Mukamadulin or a Nikita Okatiuk or one of those guys. You need to give somebody of that value or better. Um, so that's what you're looking at for Vegas. Carolina, who is some of their good prospects as well. I don't think they want to trade Seth Jarvis with how he's played this year. Winnipeg has a couple. That's why I think it's going to come down to the Jets and the Devils for Timo Meier. They both have the long-term capability of signing Timo Meier to a big long-term 7 or 8 year extension, and they also have the ability to give up the prospects and the draft picks. So maybe both willing to give up the first round pick and a good prospect. For the Jets, you got a couple. Cole Perfetti, I think, is off the board. But if they really, really like him and Chevy is really a huge fan of him, maybe he makes that move. I think more likely, guys, you're probably looking at a guy like Chaz Lucius. I think is one of the guys that's been talked about a lot. Brad Lambert, who they drafted last year. Brad Lambert's a very highly regarded prospect as well. He could be on the way to San Jose as well. And I think he has a connection with William Eklund in his past. So Brad Lambert could potentially end up playing alongside Eklund. And of course, for the Devils, there's a couple of things to look at for the Devils for Timo Meier. The first one being that Timo Meier has a connection with Nico Hischier because they're both Swiss. They're both Swiss. So that could be a fit there. Plus, we could also see Alexander Holtz, who used to play with William Eklund, be reunited. So William Eklund and Alexander Holtz being reunited, and Timo Meyer and Nico Hischier being reunited as well. It could be a win-win in those two para players regards, but that is something to look at. I think the thing is too, the Devils have to be careful with how many assets they give up here, because if this is a long-term thing, you are eventually going to have to lose guys in free agency. And even as soon as this summer, they might lose a guy like Damon Severson and a couple of other guys here over the next couple of years that you don't want to give up all your good young talent, because you're going to need guys on entry-level contracts that are good to fill out your roster. And we saw how important that was for teams like Tampa, during their cup era. For Patrick Kane, unfortunately for the Patrick Kane thing, as much as it matters what the value is, it ultimately is going to come down to, because he has a full no movement clause, where his heart is. Meaning, where does he really want to go? Now, the Rangers are off the board. He said the other day that the Leafs were never really a team he really wanted to go. I don't know how much I really believe that, especially with how he played the other day. Maybe it was a coincidence, but it's something to look at. There's a lot of teams. I think Boston, Dallas, Vegas, and Edmonton. Edmonton is a huge player here. And you want to talk about a connection? Duncan Keith. Duncan Keith played with Patrick Kane for a very long time. And Patrick might ask, hey, Duncan, how's Edmonton? And can I go there for a couple months and maybe win a Stanley Cup? Right? And just for a second, think about how much that would change the tectonic plates that would move from Patrick Kane, Leon Draisaitl, and Connor McDavid all being on the same team. That's kind of a scary thought. So when you think of it in that regard, I think there's a lot to like about that, and potentially what's on the table for Kane going to Alberta. Specifically the Oilers. I have to preface that because of the Flames. I don't think they are going after Kane. He just doesn't fit what Darryl Sutter and that group are about in Calgary. I think you could see the Calgary Flames, speaking of the Flames, maybe going kind of like Pittsburgh, like the same kind of trade block, like a third line center sort of situation. I think you're going to see a fairly quiet deadline for Calgary. I've heard stuff like Jacob Markstrom getting traded and this and that. I don't know how realistic that is at this point. What else are you guys saying in the comments here, as we are now hitting 90 minutes? Wow. Kane is better than Tarasenko. Kane got a hat trick against the Leafs last night. I think he's holding a grudge. Yeah, he said otherwise, but like you said, actions speak louder than words, and the amount of emotion he showed and just the way he played that game, he didn't look like a guy that was necessarily, let's say, happy that the Leafs traded for Ryan O'Reilly over him. Maybe that's not even what it came down to, but I think there is something to that. I think it's a little bit. I think that's him trying to quiet the noise. Let's see, what else are you guys saying? Urban said Barzal getting hurt. Stick the fork in him. A Vask said, if LA can't close on a Chikrin deal, should they go for Patrick Kane to play in the top line with Kempe and Kopitar? That's an interesting question there, A Vask. I think, again, it's the problem is with this, and this is what I think they're dealing with. It's almost a bad thing to have the amount of assets that the Kings and Rangers and stuff like that have, because the first thing that the Blackhawks are going to ask for, whether they get it or not, they're going to ask for those really good young players on the Kings. Whether it's a Jared Anderson-Dolan, Erasmus Kupari, an Alex Turcotte, they're going to look for those guys the other way. Are the Kings willing to do that? Now, again, a lot of the say also goes to Patrick Kane. Does Patrick Kane want to go to the LA Kings? Like I said earlier, does he have the heart in him to waive his no trade clause, to leave Chicago, to go to LA? I mean, with how the Kings are playing, I don't see why not. But again, that's more of Patrick Kane's decision than anything at this point. And that's why I don't think the Blackhawks are going to get maximum value for Kane, is because even if there's 5 first-round picks available from the Devils and he doesn't want to go to the Devils, well, then he's not going to the Devils, no matter what value is out there. And if the Dallas Stars offer a 3rd-round pick and Patrick Kane wants to put on a cowboy hat. Well, that's where he's going to be going. Yeehaw. Right. So it's kind of one of those things where it's going to come down to Patrick Kane's desires. And that's why I get why players want no trade clauses, but for the team, you just lose so much leverage in a trade. I get it, but it really hurts what you can get in return for these guys at the end of their careers. Urban said, I want to see Trouba versus Reeves personally. I don't think you're going to see that. As much as I would love to see that, two of them beating each other up, I don't think it's going to happen because there is that personal side of it. Unless there is like a direct situation where like they have to answer the bell to each other, I don't think they're going to go out of their way to make that fight happen. I just don't. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily see that on the table. I'm pretty sure he wants to stay on the East Coast, except maybe play with McDavid on the Oilers. Yeah. And Patrick Kane won't move his no trade to go West Coast. Is that the report that he doesn't want to go to the West Coast except Edmonton? Maybe. I just Googled number 53, and that belongs to Zizekas. Interesting players jersey to buy. I'm sure he's a solid player, but not a typical star. Yeah. So Casey Zizekas, and the backstory here, I'll talk about this for a second. Casey Zizekas has been an Islander for a very long time. He's developed by the Islanders, drafted by the Islanders, and he's been with the Islanders for a very long time. And it's a huge part of the Islanders' infamous, at the time, the identity line. Cal Clutterbuck, Casey Zizekas, and Matt Martin. And during the Islanders' heyday, back in the day, 2 years ago, he was a really key asset for the Islanders and has always been. He's the guy that, trying to think of another example on another team. He's not your superstar, but he is that guy that's the blue collar, hardworking guy. He is the guy that shows up every night, like on a given Tuesday or Saturday or game 6 of the Stanley Cup final. You are going to get the same performance from Casey Zizekas every single night. And that's what makes Casey Zizekas so good. And even the other night I saw him, he does the little things. Like the typical hockey fan, yeah, he's not scoring goals every game and this and that, but he wins puck battles. He's just such a grinder. And I love those players so much. And he signed a longer term deal. So I did pick up this jersey last year. So at least I know he'll be here for a little while. But that is why I have a Casey Zizekas jersey. Is every game that I watch and I see him, I'm like, that's why I have a Casey Zizekas jersey. Like it validates why I have his jersey because of just the type of player he is. One of you guys last night asked who's an underrated player do you think in the NHL? I think Casey Zizekas, for his role is a very underrated player. What else are you guys saying here? I can't imagine being in Kane's shoes, stuck on a garbage team, hoping for a lifeboat to get out sooner rather than the off season. Yeah, that's the NHL, man. That's kind of how things work. It's not an ideal situation, but that's hockey, And I think that right now, when you look at how things have kind of gone in Chicago, we've seen this coming for a while. It's just the Titanic is finally hitting the glacier and everybody's jumping ship. And that's kind of how things have gone. It's been a rough couple of years for Chicago. The whole rock really a tough stretch for the Chicago Blackhawks. I hope, for the best for those fans and everything getting out of it. But it is definitely going to be a